Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about what one Democratic pollster had to say in getting black votes for President Biden. He said President Biden should treat black voters like swing voters. I'm asking that question. Should this be the strategy that the Biden-Harris administration take on? We'll have that conversation. Also, how one HBCU will be making history next year as they will be the host of the general election presidential debate. I'm going to share with you which HBCU it is and the impact that that's going to make. Also, let's talk about the Adult Survivors Act in New York and how it has got the attention of the whole country. And just last week, 3,700 claims have been filed for sexual assault. And some of those folks that have been filed against are people that we hold near and dear to black entertainment. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And later on, Malcolm X at the Metropolitan Opera. Yeah, folks, taking his story as a musical, taking it to a whole different level. So folks, stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. But first, you can check us out on our various streaming platforms. And big shout out to all of our distributors. But we are streaming on a number of platforms. And the first one, of course, is our very home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure you go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free on all of your devices. Follow us on social media under Black Star Network. And of course, we look for your financial support to continue to power this digital movement. But make sure you go check us out there. We are streaming right now live on Black Star Network. We're also streaming on Amazon News on your Fire TV. So make sure you check us out there, as well as Amazon Prime Video, where you can find us there on Prime Video app under Live TV, the news, or you can find us at Amazon.com under Prime Video, Live TV, then news. And we're also on Freevee, where you can check us out on now under news. And we're on Plex TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Search for Black Star Network on Plex and find us under Live TV News and Opinion. All right, folks, we're also streaming on social media on our Facebook page under Roland Martin and Black Star Network, as well as on Roland Martin's YouTube page. And it's also on his YouTube page that you will find the illustrious culture crew, the crew that has a lot to say and don't make no bones about it. Big shout out to the crew right now checking in. Willie Frazier, I see you. Pastor Damon Blissett, I see you, sir. Thank you so much. Lord Hacko 87, have a good show, bro. Thank you, brother. I truly appreciate that. Lana, thank you so much for checking in. My sister, Willie Frazier, got you. Francesca Epps, I see you. Good afternoon to you as well, Francesca. My sister, Karen Connor, checking in all the way from the great city of Los Angeles. Karen, good to connect with you once again. Cindy D. Hey, Cindy, how are you? C.A. Pullen, I see you. Even Suzette Speaks is in the chat because she's also on the show. She's also on the show. Big shout out to you, Suzette. Donna McAdoo, Kelly. Donna, thank you so much for checking in. And P. Jackson, hello, P. Thank you for checking in. All right, let me get my sister from another mother. Suzette Speaks is in the building.
Hey, how are
Suzette,
you?
I'm good. I'm ready to rock and roll. How you feeling? Happy post-Thanksgiving.
I hope you had a great holiday. Shout out to the culture crew, everybody watching live, everybody watching Team Replay. Glad you're here. Join the conversation.
There it is right there. All right, Suzette, let's start it off right here. President Biden, folks are asking, there's been this continuous conversation about the black vote, getting the black vote, making sure you can keep the black vote. Now, one Democratic pollster has gone as far as to say maybe the president needs to treat black voters like swing voters. And this is what's been said by this Democratic pollster Semaphore. Take a look at this. This is from the Griot, folks. According to the Semaphore article summarizing the polling findings, Black voters, although predominantly Democrat, share priorities and issue awareness that closely align with those of swing voters. Now, swing voters are not firmly committed to either Democrats or Republicans and are willing to accept candidates from other parties rather than making assumptions based on stereotypes or generalizations. Treating Black voters as swing voters, one strategist told Semaphore, could include customizing political rhetoric and policy ideas to resonate with the Black community. This is different, Suzette, but is it truly revolutionary? Do you think it could be possibly a game-changing strategy?
Absolutely. I think Democrats are a little bit behind when it comes to messaging and how they should be messaging to Black people. I think we have been presumed to think very similarly to the progressive wing of the party. And I think as this small sampling size, I looked at it, Semaphore looked at 335 Black voters. So we have to really keep in mind the sample size of who they were asking, what they thought about Democrats and what they thought about Biden. But there are kitchen table issues that seem to resonate the most with Black voters. Surprise, surprise. I don't know about you, but I know that Black people are worried about the prices at the supermarket, about wages, about being able to sustain a decent lifestyle, right? And the cost of living has been hitting us very hard. So when they did this poll, they looked at all these economic responses that came from Black people. And I don't know if it was shocking to them, but if you talk to any Black person from around the way, you will hear that they are concerned with economics, just like every other American. Imagine that. So we are not just simply confined to a small box of issues. And I think that more polls like this will be able to alarm the Democrats to tell them, you know, you have to speak to us in many different types of ways. We are not a monolith. And I don't know about being swing in terms of maybe picking different candidates each election. Those are the decisive voters, basically, that you don't know really how they're going to vote. But Black people will stay home. So we have to give them a reason to vote. So I do think this is great information. Again, it already confirms what many of us already know.
Right, right. But I think there is some credence to this idea, because I think, and to the pollster's credit, I think this is something that may work, only because I feel like, you know, you and I both know Black folks, we show out in droves, whether you're talking about Black men, Black women, or both. We show out in droves, and there's still this sense like, hey, we're showing up, but you're not showing up, right? So I think there's that. Whereas with swing voters, people are always trying to figure out where their heads are, trying to cater to their interests, trying to speak to them through the political rhetoric. And I think that's necessary for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, kind of like court us a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Take us out on a date. Don't just, you know, jump into it and just say, okay, no. I mean, need a little foreplay, Suzette. Just a little something.
We got to take a break from Roger. We got to take a break and come back. Take a break and come back. Reset that.
No, let me take our first pause when we come forward. More conversation. Quotes, folks, I want to get your take on this. Should President Biden look at and treat Black voters like swing voters, giving us a little different flavor, talking directly to us? Benny Hill, I see you on that when you said, man, let's have them talk directly to us. That might be of the move. I'm going to share with you more of what this Democratic pollster had to say about this idea, and of course, continue to get your take as well as Suzette. So stay with us. We're just getting started here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money make this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We are having a conversation, asking the question, should President Biden treat Black voters like swing voters? Now, this is based upon a conversation that Democratic pollster Semaphore and others are having about the fact that the support for President Biden and the Democratic Party has been dropping among Black voters. And now Democratic pollsters are trying to figure out, like, what's the next strategy? And they're saying maybe if we tailor-made the message a little bit better to really speak to Black folks. Let me bring my sister Suzette Speaks back into the fold here as we have this part of the conversation. Now, there's a different element of this that I do want to bring up. That, right, you mentioned, Suzette, that we're not a monolith, that, and I was making a point, like, I get it. You want to take us to the big dance, but, kind of date us a little bit, kind of like court us, kind of like say something that's going to get us back into your favor, our favor rather, and back into the corner. Now, I want to share this piece. This is coming from the article. The point, one of the Semaphore talked about making this thing different. And so it was said by one of the pollsters saying that you don't have to do some crazy targeted ad buy that only goes on conservative talk radio in swing counties in Wisconsin. He's talking about if you really want to gain Black voters, that there should be an effort to make that those things that are important to Black people, say it on the loudest spaces, the loudest platforms. Go out and say it scream off the rooftop of what you're doing, what you're planning to do, and how you plan to take this group of people to the next level. So they're saying, look, you don't have to go and make these targeted buy ads. You can just have these conversations at every opportunity. If you're going to talk about law enforcement, you got to talk about it in the context of Black folks. If you're going to talk about economics, like you mentioned, you got to talk about it in the conversation of Black and brown folks. If you're going to talk about healthcare, talk about add a piece. How do you think that would pan out with the president? Is that too much that we're expecting and even asking the president or vice president to do, Suzette?
No, I think as you're describing, we have to be more sensitive that the Black voter is a very complex voter. We cannot presume where Black people automatically stand on all issues. Again, among Black people, we have views that are very conservative on certain issues, and we have views that are more liberal or even progressive on other issues. So this one size fits all, how the Democrats have in the past decided to speak to all Black people, is being shown to not really fit, right? Because there are people, depending on where you live, Louisiana elections that we just looked at, where I am in the deeper South here in Florida, in the Northeast, and in metropolitan centers, and various states across our union, we think differently, and there are cultural nuances even among Black people. So if you are silly enough, quite frankly, to place the same type of messaging in every area of the Black community across this great country, we are going to be at a loss, because it's not going to speak to the needs as much as it has to get Black people to vote. The number one issue I feel that Democrats have right now is that Black people do not understand, and the messaging is not clear enough and frequent enough to tell them exactly what has Biden done for them. And I know we could do it in the next segment. I sent you something, Farajii, that was a press release actually from February 2023 from the White House, listing all of the things that were done by this administration in favor of Black economics, of the Black community as a whole. And I was like, this needs to be shouted from the rooftops. But instead, I think that Democrats have been stuck in an old playbook as to what Black people care about. So we have to understand that when we're talking to Black folks, depending on the parts of the country, as well as our needs often do align, but on issues that maybe Democrats don't think we're thinking about. Again, I don't think we can say that majority of the Black community is not focused on economics, right? The wages across the country are not keeping up with how inflation, even though inflation has gone down, right? We don't feel it as much, right? The kitchen table issues are the hardcore issues. And I don't know why Democrats don't press play all over the country when it comes to tailoring ads in that regard towards Black people. Instead, you hear them oftentimes relying on more progressive issues or more progressive stances towards issues where all Black people don't feel that way, depending on what you're talking about. So I think they got to wise up. I have always believed that some of the consultant class that the Democrats use when it comes to election time and who they're asking to develop some of these ads, you hear them on the radio. Sometimes I hear these ads and I'm like, who wrote this? This is not how I speak. This is not how I feel towards, a certain candidate or where they stand when it comes to even policing or other issues. How you present the information and where the administration, the Biden administration, stands on it is super important. And I hope they get some qualified folks that can help them do a better job to relay what exactly is happening on behalf of Black folk, because there's a lot of stuff happening. And I was trying to make a list, and again, we can bring up our graphic in a little bit, but there's so much happening, but Black people, don't know, or how it's being delivered to them as far as this has passed. This is a reform that came from the White House that is in your interest when it comes to rental assistance, when it comes to prescription drugs, when it comes to funding HBCUs, when it comes to what we survived the pandemic on, right? The child tax credit, all the things that are in the infrastructure bill. I know that's a big word, and sometimes we're wondering, like, how does that affect my life? But a lot of funding for small businesses, a lot of funding for even like childcare, daycare that people got tax breaks on when it came to during the pandemic and just after the pandemic. Much of it has just ended. There were a lot of things that helped sustain our lives that the Biden administration did, but we don't know about it. And again, the messaging for whatever reason is not landing, and they have to do a better job of listening.
I think that, and I know we got to take another quick pause, but I think that the message doesn't land because, one, it's coming from up top. And so once a directive or a mandate or a policy comes from up top, then it has to make its way, trickle down to the states. And then it gets other stuff. It's running up against other challenges, right? So if you're living in a state that is, say, Republican led, you may not even see the benefits of what President Biden does, right? Because you're living in a state where funding and all of this other red tape is there. But if you're living in a state that is Democrat led, then you might see it. But I think that people are understanding. I think there are a couple of things at play. One is people understand the process of government is different from the process of life. The time frame that government does things and when things kick in, when things take effect, is so different than what we expect. So if President Biden announces a policy today, then there's this understanding in I think in a lot of people's mind, not just black folks, that okay, it's going to kick in like tomorrow, and it doesn't. There's steps between that. So that's just one part of it. But then the other part of it is just the expectation, right? Like, for example, Big Brother Willie Frazier said, we need more civic education because the things that black people are worrying about, Biden really can't do anything about. There are some things the president just can't help. Willie said, good power on some issues is very limited. So, there's still a process, and I'm thank you, Willie, for saying that, because there's still a process in this whole thing that we have to understand, that we have to learn, and that we have to navigate through with our own expectations. And I think that's part of it. It's not, for me, it's like, okay, you can say, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, but people are at dire straits in some neighborhoods, right? Families are really struggling. And so unless you put in some money in their hands, some food in the refrigerator, they're going to always kind of say, yeah, y'all not doing enough because it's not as tangible.
Certainly for some folks, but I know directly people who have gotten loan forgiveness. I know
that's
8
true.
million people got rental assistance.
That's something, and
some real people with some real dollars, happen to benefit from different programs, etc. But I agree with your point that unless you feel that sense that it hit home for me, I knew my job was saved by X, Y, and Z, or I got the child income tax credit, so I was able to sustain myself and save a little something during, one of the most difficult international, economic challenges being the pandemic that we've ever seen. I'm going to drop a link in the chat, y'all, with some more of what the Biden administration has done.
There you go.
Let's talk about it as well.
All right, let's take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about that. Let's throw in the mix that there is an HBCU that will be the host of the general election presidential debate happening next year. I'll share with you that which HBCU is, and more importantly, the implications of hosting a presidential election at a black college and university. What does that mean for HBCU communities? We'll have that conversation up next as well. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, you're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I've got my sister Suzette Speaks joining me as well as we talk about President Biden and how there is one Democratic pollster that suggests that maybe the president should treat black voters like swing voters and really start to gain those voters back, because a lot of black voters are slowly falling away from the Democratic Party. I know that you probably come across some numbers as well, Suzette. But here's what the Wall Street Journal put out in a survey that indicated that Republicans have made significant gains among Black and Latino voters between 2018 and 2020 election. In the 2018 midterm elections, Republican candidates had only 8% support among Black voters, and former President Trump received the same 8% in 2020. Democrats had a support of 31% advantage over Republicans among Latinos in 2018 and a 28% advantage in 2020. But then the journal shared that 17% of Black voters now back Republicans, while Democrats' lead among Latinos has reduced to just 5 points. So they went from 28% in 2020 to just 5 in 2023. Dang. Wow.
I'm always curious about where ends the sample size, right? Of how
that is true.
What you're doing.
That is true.
But it's true. I mean, as the conversation is going, we need to definitely have a refreshed look at it, at what Black people want to hear about, and if the Democratic Party and the Biden administration has actually been centering their needs as far as their administration. If we could pull up real quick, Maddie, I sent in the back chat, and I was posting it in the chat itself on YouTube, but it's too long. I'll go and post it in the comments after the show is done. The link to what I've just referred to here. You can just scroll real quick. This is the fact sheet. This came out February 2023 about what Biden's administration has done for Black equity. Notice economic equity, how they've lowered. You can scroll through the Inflation Reduction Act as well as the Infrastructure Act. People don't really understand how that trickles down and what that means for their day-to-day lives. But relief to farmers, critical investment in Black families and community, child care tax credit, supporting child care providers. Over $39 billion was given to child care providers during the pandemic. The American Rescue Plan, what it meant for workers, $15 minimum wage, basically in de facto among federal workers. Majority of those are Black. Helping with rental assistance, helping Black families stay in their home. Keep going. Extended small business, expanded capital, investing in workforce training. Keep going. Ensuring Black homeowners get full. I love this one. The PAVE program, making sure we get the same valuation for our properties when we're selling them via HUD. Leveraging federal procurement in terms of making sure Black contractors get federal contracts. Reversing decades of divestment through the bipartisan infrastructure bill. There's so much to read here. I'm going to post this link after, like I said, when it comes to all the things. This is just Black stuff. And we don't think of it necessarily as something that we see directly, but canceling junk fees when it comes to banks and credit cards benefits Black people. $35 when it comes to insulin for diabetic patients affects Black people. So yeah, there are things that are going to be broader. I like your comment, Anna L, when it comes to, okay, that's American. And we, as a whole, as a part of this great tapestry, we're going to benefit. But there also is a Black agenda. And I don't think they're kind of expressing that enough, or having the, as they're talking about with the swing voters, the best messaging towards getting that message out that, listen, you are front and center here at this White House. So I'm going to drop that link and people can read it.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you brought it up. And again, that's can be found at whitehouse.gov. That's actually, and if you have been to the White House's website, they actually have a whole, I would say a whole section of the site just dedicated to their efforts to empower Black America. Now, I've seen that. I've gone to the website, so I know that it's there. So I think that that is important and pivotal for us to take a look at. Corinna, our sister Corinna, she said, the reason to vote should be for our own humanity. It should not be conveyed as an incentive for your participation. I agree. I had a conversation, Suzette, earlier this week with a mentor slash advisor of mine who made the point. She said, Farajii, I'm not telling people to vote for Biden. I'm telling people to vote for the future you want to see. Now, that takes us into a different space because I think a lot of this conversation about Biden and Trump is all wrapped up in their personalities. But if you take the personalities out of the conversation and say, okay, what is the future that you want to see? What do we want to leave to our children, our grandchildren, nieces and nephews? What do we want? What is the future that we want to see? And I told her, I said, man, that hit me. That resonated with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this. She's like, go ahead and tell her. She's like, you can take it to the show, Farajii, no problem. But that was the thing. It's like, what is the future that we want to see? And I think for a lot of Black folks, for so long, Suzette, we have always been told what our future could be, but we have not been given the opportunity to create the future that we want. And I think that is a different mindset to have. Instead of then, we're going to live with it, like the government is doling this out or doing that and say, okay, see, and we just kind of like go along to get along. We are literally at a point in this country, and I think in Black politics and Black Americans in general, we're at a point now that we can create the future that we want. Now, we got we know we have these two parties, and then we have like a Dr. Cornel West, but we're in a prime position to create the future that we want with our vote, with our participation, with our activism. We can create the future that we want. And that's why when people say, well, look at the Jewish people, look at the Latinos, look at the Asian Americans, because they came here to create the future that they want. Yes, they are part of the country, but at the end of the day, they came here and said, you know what? This is what I want from the quote unquote land of the free, home of the brave. And they came here. We didn't come here like that. So there's got to be a reprogramming of our thinking to now say we're no longer commodity. Now we can be producers.
We are sons and daughters of the building.
We can't lose. Right, we can't lose track of
inheritance. We have to look at that, and I agree with you 100%. Sitting at home means billions of dollars and policies are still going to be made without your input, without us running, Black men, Black women, with the mindset towards building of the Black community. We don't have people in that pipeline as voters, as candidates, as donors. These are all parts of this political behemoth, like it or not. Right? It's still, the wheels keep on turning. That's what they say. And we are having to take a deep look, and Democrats are having to look and say, how do we earn this? Right? Not just presume that everybody going to show up. Right? Because that's not happening. Clearly, Louisiana's past election, just putting a Black face on top of your ticket, it's not going to do it. We have to hear where you stand. Are you qualified to deal with our issues? And are they at the forefront of your agenda? That's more important to Black folks now, more than ever. So they have to wise up, both parties, but specifically speaking of the Democrats, the messaging. I keep saying, I read so much about what has been done. I understand how to connect some of these more complex dots with how a bill that is passed with billions of dollars in it come back to your local community and help to sustain your local government and housing and all things that we use on a day-to-day basis. But everybody doesn't necessarily have that same kind of understanding of how things happen. And so they're looking at their lives. They're going to the supermarket. I can't even get a good basket full for $100, right? I'm looking around, meat not even on the conveyor belt. and it's already $150, right? And I don't have kids, so I can imagine how people with families are feeling when they, even though gas prices have recently gone down. But when we look at the economic piece, the administration has to explain what could have been because of this pandemic. This global pandemic could have taken us out, what they did to sustain us throughout, and what they're doing now. Inflation has actually decreased, right, in percentages. However, we still feel like the average American, when they're polled, doesn't feel like they're in a safe place when it comes to their economics. So he has to start speaking to that real soon.
Very, very soon. And you know what, though? You talking about that, the cost of meat. Please, let's not throw in the fact, Suzette, if you have some dietary restrictions, if you're gluten-free, lactose intolerant, vegan, or vegetarian, please.
Right, them eggs. I'd be like, oh, don't eat like
the organic food, the oat milk and soy milk and almond milk for half. Come on, don't get me started.
Figure out, the baking soda really wash it off good. Baking soda, I gotta buy conventional now. It's crazy, but people feel that way. So you have to do a better job of educating the American population.
We got to do a much better job. Much better job. Let's talk a little bit about this before we take our next pause. That one of the big sites for the upcoming presidential election will be. It was announced will be an HBCU, Suzette.
Yes.
And according to the announcement coming from the Commission on Presidential Debates, this is the group that is responsible, bipartisan group that's responsible for setting up the debates for the upcoming election. They announced last week that Virginia State University, VSU in Petersburg, will host the second debate of the 2024 general election cycle on October the 1st. Now, according to VSU President Makola Abdullah, she said, quote, "We are honored and grateful to have been chosen as a host for the 2024 presidential debate. This is a historic moment for our university and for HBCUs nationwide." What's your take on this? How do you think this is going to impact the conversation, at least, the conversation that includes Black American HBCUs?
I love this. This puts Black thinkers, right? Black students at the center of the conversation of who should be president of the United States. Now, we've seen presidential debates held at other universities, right? But this will be the first at a historically Black college or university. So I think the mainstream media might say HBCUs are having a moment. We know they are the cornerstone of educating Black minds for over a century and a half, really. But we're looking at it now as having kind of like this gravitas, right? Where we are saying the impact that they have and continue to have on our country and producing some of the best and brightest, it justifies this being one of the first and hopefully not the only locations that we will see a presidential debate. It is a wonderful change is an understatement, but it is a way that we are kind of getting a little head nod beyond where we should have already been included, but now we see this kind of overt I don't want to call it acceptance, but this overt hand of unity that there's that this university as well is one that we would like to highlight and give this honor. So I think it's a wonderful honor for Virginia University.
It's a big honor, and my thinking is. My hope is, well, a couple of things. One is that my hope is that since it's at a HBCU, that there's going to be some very more in-depth, insightful conversation, or at least some questions around the state of HBCUs and everything. But then part of me also says that keeping it real with you is like, nah, I don't want to hear about this because we might get a bunch of canned answers, right? Like, oh, HBCUs are important. I mean, who's going to say that a college is not important to Black folks in 2023?
Yeah, hopefully they do hold their feet to the fire with HBCU questions as well as questions pertaining to the Black community as a whole.
Absolutely. Look, we're going to take another quick pause. When we come back, let's continue the conversations on the other side. Folks, if you're just tuning into The Culture, we are streaming live on blackstarnetwork.com, our home site. We also stream it on Amazon News, on Plex TV, on Freevee. But we're also streaming on our social media under Roland Martin on our YouTube page. It's on our YouTube page that you can be a part of the illustrious culture crew for the day. Folks are checking in from all around the country. different parts of the world. We see you. We thank you for being a part of the conversation. And let's continue to have the discussions on the other side as we get your take on this latest news coming from the Commission on Presidential Debates and so much more. Next hour, I need to talk about this Adult Survivors Act in the state of New York and how it has created just a huge like storm of new claims of sexual assault. 3,700 claims have been filed in New York around because of this act in just 1 week, folks. What is happening with men and women today? We're going to have that conversation on the other side. Stay with me. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. We are streaming right now on our website, our home site of blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app, follow us on all social media platforms, and more importantly, folks, even though Giving Tuesday happened yesterday, you can still make your donation today to help us to power through this digital movement, this digital space that we are in, because your investment will make a world of difference for us to continue to do the work of putting out strong content, being there on the ground for big events and for big and small events, and most importantly, having these conversations like today. So your support means a lot to us. So that's why we're going to give a big shout out to Karen Meggs. Karen Meggs, let's give her a little horn or something there because she gave something today to be a part of the Bring the Funk fan club, came in at level 1. So Karen, thank you so much for support of the Black Star Network and being a part of the culture crew for the day here on the culture. So we truly appreciate it. So thank you again, Karen. Now, let me bring my sister back in, Suzette Speaks. Suzette, before we go into this talk about this Adult Survivors Act, a lot of people are like, wait a minute, HBCU, they feel like that it might be some level of pandering that may happen because it's at an HBCU and, you know, we heard the talk, we talk about these things, right? But we know it's going to be a lot of pomp and circumstance. How can the Democrats, and I can't speak for the Republicans on that, but the Democrats is having this. So how can the Democrats
presidential
whoever will be debate, right?
On each side. Mm-hmm.
So how can the Democrats use this as an opportunity to speak the loudest on what they're doing? Like, how can they get the most out of this? Where Black folks don't feel like there's going to be a lot of pandering and a lot of, you know.
So we just we had a whole segment about we don't hear enough about how they address our issues, and then they're damned if they do, and they have something at an HBCU, and it's like, oh, y'all want to talk about our issues now? Like we you can't win for trying. So I think we got to be very careful to presume that this is some sort of pander. I think it's something that we have all wanted to see, which is the Black community to be mainstreamed, right? To be more included in the general discussion as to where the direction of this country should be going. So I don't think it's a loss. I really think it's a win. And I would love to debate people who think that this is a bad thing for, I said Virginia University, I should have said Virginia State University to be hosting this debate. I think it all goes back to the meat and potatoes of the questions. I think the moderators will have a great deal to do with how people feel the debate goes as to whether it feels like a pander or if they're actually holding the candidates accountable for what they're truly going to do or not do. I think sometimes we kind of get stuck in the optics, but they don't go, then we say they're not talking to Black people. So I do think that we can this through a lens of inclusivity and diversity. And again, some people are going to argue, well, why now when I agree with you to a certain extent, but if we never get invited to that table, people still eating. So I think we have to be very mindful of that kind of desire to want to be talked to. And then when people try to talk to you, why are you trying to talk to me here now? This is an important presidential year, right? What happens now, I'm talking about, is just so consequential. I would rather them be sitting at Virginia State University than at some other location.
There it is. Yeah, I agree with you. I can't really. I'm a little speechless right now, Suzanne.
We can argue about
like you said, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Exactly. They don't want to talk to us. They don't have a Black agenda. Okay, they're at Virginia State, and now you're mad. Like, okay, so we got to actually make some progress.
But you know what? I get it. I totally get it. And I think that this comes from a space where you have been lied to, you have been tricked, you have been told one thing about, belief in the system, belief in people for so long that they've disappointed you. So I'm not completely upset that people feel skeptical.
Okay.
I mean, I think we should be able to feel skeptical in terms of our relationship to the parties, skeptical to our relationship to our government. I mean, we're at a different place. And after all of this time, I'm not even talking about the time we were enslaved as a people, but after that point and all of these things, I can totally understand the skepticism, Suzanne.
Yeah, I'm not saying
people don't want a window dress no more. We want to be in the store, like you said, be at the table. We want to be in the store. We don't want to be mannequins right now.
Yeah, I mean, but they could do it at another PWI.
True.
We didn't make any progress that way. So I can understand that. And I do have that empathetic eye to folks who are kind of disillusioned by the system as a whole. I get that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let me do this. Let me take another pause. When we come forward, let's talk about the Adult Survivors Act out of New York and the impact that it has made. 37 new claims have been filed just last week alone, folks. And let's talk a little bit about what does this mean for the conversation around our culture and more importantly, hip hop, the movement. Should there be, as part of this conversation, I'm asking the question, should there be a Me Too movement in the hip hop community, in the hip hop world? We'll have that conversation up next. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks. We want to talk a little bit about the Adult Survivors Act that had the whole country talking, because this is the act that was created, or that was signed back in 2022, and it has expired on Friday, November the 24th. And basically, it removes the statute of limitations of folks that have been abused, and them coming forward to file some legal claim against their alleged abuser. So this particular act has gotten people talking all across the country, because not only are these claims been of regular folks, quote unquote, but they have also included high-profile celebrities and a handful of politicians. So, I made the statement that 3,700 claims were filed last week, when in fact, and I want to correct myself, that it was 3,700 claims that were filed over this 1-year period,
Right.
and as ending on Friday, November 24th. So I want to make sure that we're clear about that, and we didn't want to misrepresent. But Suzette, talk to me about this Adult Survivors Act that we saw, that this influx of people kind of like going to the court system. And I'm not sure, I'm going to be honest with you, Suzette. And I was like, I can't talk to nobody else about this other than a lawyer, because I'm not sure, what does this mean? Is this talk about this particular act and all of these claims, is this finally like something that we should be like applauding and hoping that other states start to adopt, or is this a money grab situation for some people? Like, and I know you probably we can't tell, but it changes the
We'll
course of the
discuss both
conversation.
sides. Yeah, we'll discuss both sides. But you laid it out very well, Farajii, when it comes to what exactly happened. So we know the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, 1 year ago signed into law what was passed by the New York State Legislature, which would allow at any period in time for this course of a year, if any victim of sexual assault wanted to come forth, and file a lawsuit in civil court, not criminal court. Let's just be clear. Remember, there are two sides of our justice system in the United States: the criminal side, which is the state prosecuting a person for crimes against what is on the state books, right? The state law, right? And bringing them to justice and going to jail. Civil lawsuits are between two individuals, one claiming that one has in some way damaged them, and they're seeking some sort of compensation for those damages, right? So this allowed a 1 year window for civil lawsuits for any victim during any time period of sexual assault or harassment or anything that was of a sexual nature. So what we saw over the course of a year, as you stated, 3,700 lawsuits were filed, right? Some as old and even older than 50 years ago, right? No statute of limitations was given, and it actually opened the door on what was previously about a year, right? But if you talk to any prosecutor around this country who deals with sexual cases, we have something that is very common. It's called delayed disclosure, in which it is very common for those who have suffered this form of abuse and assaults that they don't come forward right away. Oftentimes it takes many years to come to terms with what in fact did happen or allegedly has happened to these individuals. So we did see in this last week, right before Thanksgiving, an influx before the deadline. And that's where we saw Cassie's case that was brought against Diddy. And I think that one was a huge one that, we saw. But the very first one that went viral was actually the president's. President Trump, when we saw him sued for sexual harassment in the Waldorf Astoria dressing room by author E. Jean Carroll. This was the act that she used to bring that case. And again, she won that case, winning $5 million. And of course, it's going to be appealed by the former president. But we have now seen so many more names being drawn into positions of having to defend their name, right? We have, and one thing I will say, I did take issue with another network. I guess I can't name it here. And all they used were the black men who were being accused. They didn't use any photos in their report, but of white men who also were now facing these lawsuits. But let's call them out, right? We have Axl Rose, right? We have Russell Brand, former mayor or Cuomo. We have several others that we know among our community. Jamie Foxx, his name was now mentioned in a lawsuit saying that, he had perpetrated allegedly some form of unwanted touching. We see Cuba Gooding Jr. We see Bill Cosby being named again in these lawsuits. So this is also something that I think other states will be looking at. And I was just reading that California is considering something like this, opening back up the possibility of filing, even though the statute of limitations. Yes, other places are doing it because guess what?
I just want to jump in there.
Let me just go ahead. Harvey Weinstein, put that name back in there because we've seen these names presented to us before. It doesn't mean that these people are guilty, right? But they're looking for compensation, right? Some sort of monetary damages for what they allege happened to them.
Look, I can only, and I appreciate you kind of making that distinction, because it's not just black men. And I've seen that on social media over the weekend. People are like, oh man, it's an all-out attack on black men. No, it's not an attack on black men. If black men kept their hands to themselves, like stop blaming the victims. Let's keep that real. We always ask the question, why didn't the victim do A, B, and C? Very few times do we ask the question, why do men keep doing A, B, and C? Right? In these cases, right? So let's not get into that space. But I'm glad that you brought that point up. But just to see that if it comes to California, you got New York City, the most populated city in the country. Los Angeles is second up in the most popular. It's going to open up, I mean, huge. That will be a game-changing policy. And it could truly advance the conversation, Suzette, around sexual assault, rape, domestic violence. It can be a game changer here. So how does that? And I know we got to take another quick pause. So let me pose this question and then get your take afterwards. But how does that work in terms of kind of pushing the conversation? Because right now we just kind of getting this thing of, okay, who's next? Who's next? And being filed against. I'm trying to figure out how does this push the conversation around the treatment, the protection, the overall rights that women have in the state of New York and possibly in other states. So I want to have that discussion on the other side. Folks, stay with us. We're just getting started here, having this part of the conversation about the Adult Survivors Act. What's your take on this? As we're seeing that there was this huge number of new claims that were filed over the year, and the conversation around sexual assault, sexual abuse is still raging on, but we still haven't found any true resolution. So post your comments in the chat as we're streaming right now on Roland Martin's YouTube page, and of course, stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about the Adult Survivors Act. This is the act that had removed the statute of limitations in the state of New York for a year and opened the door for past victims, previous victims to file a claim against their alleged abusers, alleged perpetrators, in an effort to try to bring some sort of justice to a lot of these cases. And so, over the course of that year, this Adult Survivors Act was signed in 2022. Over the course of the year, 3,700 claims have been filed before the close of that time period, which was Friday, November the 24th. And so, talking to my sister Suzette Speaks, who is not only just a TV show host, but she's also an attorney, to give us some insight about the implications, and more importantly, how does this push the culture around in the conversation about sexual assault forward? So that'd be my question here, Suzette. Is like, how do we get out of this space to seeing who's next? How do we get out of this space of having a conversation about sexual assault through the context of money grab, and getting into a better space of really empowering victims to speak their truth and to find justice?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we look at New York as the trailblazer that it is in terms of their legislature looking up and looking at what laws were on the books and seeing if and questioning whether they were sufficient in order to mete out justice. Again, I want to say, first and foremost, when it comes to whose profiles and who have been used as kind of the poster boys of this, we have to hold journalists accountable and news outlets accountable for kind of showing us one side or one view of who has been accused. Now, most of these men, we'll have to say, even President Trump, from his time being held liable for the case against E. Jean Carroll, he has maintained his innocence. Mr. Combs has come out, and I will add to that list Aaron Hall. I haven't seen a spokesperson, speak to where he stands on all of this, but many of those who have been accused have stated they don't remember this happening, it never happened, and they denied the allegation. So we just want to put that out there. So I want to also visit, and I was just looking up Farajii because I was listening to some coverage about what is happening now in other places, because what I think is going to start happening is around the country on the state level, there are going to be state legislators within the state houses and the state senate that are going to take a look at their laws on the books when it comes to how long of a time that possible victims of sexual abuse have to make their claim. Now, again, New York was around about a year prior to this. And again, 18-year-olds or higher, folks who could make a claim one time, were given this opportunity through this, what we call sunsetted law, 1 year only. So I was looking up, and I haven't read it, so I hate to talk about it because I haven't read it, the California Sexual Abuse and Cover-Up Accountability Act, which looks like, and again, it's premature for me to discuss it, but is giving like a 2026 window where there are certain lawsuits, and I have to go deeper into it before I speak about it here, that may be able to be filed. So I do think this has opened the door to a couple. Before, I think there was a limited understanding across our society as a whole as to the nature of sexual crime, right? Sexual abuse, sexual misconduct, and whether it was as salacious as what was outlined in the federal lawsuit that was, filed and then disposed of by, between Cassie and Sean Diddy Combs, where, they came to some sort of settlement. People's eyes are open that, it's not one way that something like this can happen. Of course, when it comes in the Hollywood scene and the media kind of takes on that, what should I say, the salacious side of it, we have to just remember that there are real people and real lives affected by this. I will point out that in New York, a lot of lawsuits were also filed, we're not hearing as much about them, by former prisoners against prison guards. I was reading about a lady who said she was pregnant at the time, had been, according to her allegations, that she was raped, and they are suing not only the individuals, but the state of New York, the prison systems, et cetera, and talking about how she lost her baby at 4 months, where the same guard came back and violated her, according to her lawsuit again. There are several like that, where there are former prisoners talking about abuse in the system. So I think it's great that they are, as a great, not the abuse, but that they are highlighting what happened to them, because we discussed it when I was on Roland's show, how much, disregard we have for human life once it's inside of a prison, where we should allow our fellow Americans really to serve their time out safely without thinking about an added punishment, and really not punishment, a violation, a human rights violation, to be subject to sexual assault while they're just trying to serve their time. I think some of those need to be talked about a little bit more. But I do think we have taken a step forward when it comes to our understanding of a society, that people don't come forward right away. It's the nature of the crime, it's the shame, it's the embarrassment, the type of courage it takes to actually go forward, make yourself known, and file this type of lawsuit. I think we cannot underestimate that. Again, there are going to be other commentary around, why they waited so long. It's all about the money, etc. You're going to hear both sides of this. But
I think so.
I don't know if they have equal weight in my eyes.
Right. Here's Pretty Brown Mimi 726. My sister, you said I ain't check you out. I ain't acknowledge you. So I'm acknowledging you, and I'm going to share your comment because I think you're what Suzette is saying, it speaks directly to your comment, Mimi. But you said the first thing you said is that if you've been sexually assaulted, you don't know what you're going to do or when you're going to report it. I think that's super real. And because Mimi, you have also said that she said, as a domestic violence survivor, let's start with believing Black women. Non-Black women aren't the only survivors out here. # believe us, Black women too. So we can't really say how we would respond, because if it happens, and God forbid it happens to any woman, but if it happens, there is a psychological shift. There is a mental shift. You're going through all of these emotions. You're going through all of these changes in a very short period of time. It's thrusted upon you. So as a man, and as just one who tries to be empathetic to other people's suffering, that time of when to report it happens when it happens. And we can't dictate that. It's like somebody trying to speeding up the grief process after you lose a loved one, right? Like it's going to take whatever time you need to take is the time you need to take. And there are triggers. That's one of the things that I've learned, that sometimes, a woman can recover emotionally and mentally, move on with her life, and then just seeing that person, especially if it's a high profile individual, you seeing this person on TV around other people, quote unquote, living their best life, you're triggered. And it happens. And then you're like, you know what? Fuck, I'm about to,
I hear you. And it's not even like they get over it, Farajii. They bury it. Life still continues. You still got your family and your bills and things to take care of. So oftentimes we compartmentalize, right? I'm not a psychologist, but we all have these ways as human beings of coping with untold trauma that we are sitting on. And it doesn't have to be seeing that person. It can be in the next relationship. It can be talking to somebody on the phone. There's so many layers to this that we as a community, as a society, are just beginning to understand a lot better. So I do think this type of legal landscape, this shift, is allowing us to have more in-depth, if we want to, conversations, and not just the salacious headlines of it. And I couldn't hardly finish reading what was in Cassie's federal lawsuit.
Oh my God! Let me just tell you, if I'm in, if I had that experience, the least I can do is take your money. That's the least, because
prevent you from doing it again.
Prevent you from doing it again. Take your money. Because there is so much trauma and so much pain and so much, there's so much that's attached to that a person, and of course we've heard about victims who have contemplated suicide, victims who have taken their own lives as a result of that moment, of that experience of being sexually assaulted. So the least a woman can do is take a joker's money. Like, I don't care if, and we got to take another quick pause, but, this is, people, I see people on the conversation talking about Diddy and everything. Look, for a high profile individual like Diddy, you got tons of footage where he said some of the wildest shit ever as it relates to boys, children, women. The least you can do is take that man's money. The least you can do is force him out of spaces of power and influence. That's the least you can do. Otherwise, then you're going to cause a person to lose their mind, and they going might even resort to violence, Suzette, because they feel like they're not going to be heard. And that could be a whole different that could be a whole different thing. So the least I think the state should really look at this. If we talked about, having ebony alerts, we're talking about, Representative Omar we talked about this earlier this week, talking about establishing an office for missing and murdered women. Why not have an act to protect women and boys and men who have been abused, and prisoners who have been abused? Abused people are walking in our neighborhoods, in our communities every single day. We don't talk about it in our families. We don't talk about it. We don't go to therapy. And then you walking around and you just feeling this resentment, this hatred, this bitterness, and then the government doesn't do anything. You're just creating a monster from an experience that was imposed and put on them, not an experience that they decided to take on their own. So that's not fair. That is not fair. And we got to do better. We got to do better. We got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more conversation. Stay with us here on the Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about the Adult Survivors Act that just expired in New York on November 24th, and that had opened up a huge conversation for abuse victims to finally have something to get their voice heard, as a number of victims have filed claims in New York State around the issue of sexual assault. 3,700 claims have been filed during the course of the year that the act was in service. Let me bring my sister Suzette Speaks back because I think Suzette, this also opens the conversation about the Me Too movement in hip hop world. I remember when the Me Too movement hit the film industry, the film and TV industry, with Harvey Weinstein and others who were pointed out as being predators and sexual deviants. That I was wondering, and this is just for me, I don't know about anyone else. I was like, damn, I wonder if it's going to come to hip hop. And it started when there was some a claim filed against Russell Simmons, a rape claim that from I think it was the early '90s that it happened. But and then I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be the tipping point. This is going to be the, but it didn't. It didn't. It didn't go that way. It kind of just like fizzled out. Now with Diddy and this Cassie lawsuit, even though it has been settled, and I want to get your take on that. Like, what do we make of that for her to file a lawsuit and then literally in a 24-hour period, that lawsuit is settled? Is that an indicator of guilt?
No, no, I wouldn't say so. Well, I pointed out again, I had an amazing segment about this as that on the date that lawsuit was being filed. And we have over 150,000 views on that on Roland's show, by the way. But my very words was sometimes and oftentimes these things get settled. And then by that evening, like right after we went off the air, they had reached a settlement. So that's not uncommon, and it is not an admission of guilt. I know in the court of public opinion, if you watch social media, everybody's like, if you didn't do nothing, you would defend your name, etc. It can cost you more to go through this process, even if you weren't a person who committed the said acts. It can cost you a lot. We've already seen some fallout. We've seen that even though he owns the company, that Mr. Combs has been removed or has stepped down, depending on where you read the headline, as the head of Revolt. And there may be other fallout where people.
Oh yeah, Macy's took Sean John out of the store.
People, yeah, I think we are having the Me Too for hip hop right now. Other people who have been named include, L.A. Reid. Not again to say that any of these people are guilty. They are all innocent. And many have claimed they're innocent until proven otherwise, or like I said, in a civil case found liable or not. These are not criminal cases. This is an individual suing another individual for damages. So we I think are seeing it now, where a lot more of the faces that we are familiar with from Black entertainment are having to face these type of allegations. And I think, unfortunately, again, whether they choose to settle or not is not an admission of guilt, but unfortunately, it's something that they have to deal with, whether, they did it or not, right? They have to.
Do you think that there needs to be some more structured conversations about the treatment of women, especially by high-profile, powerful men? Like there needs to be some structured discussion about this, because I don't want us to lose the momentum. And Diddy, he's been such an instrumental figure in that music and entertainment for 30 years at least, right? For 30 years. And as much as that we talked about the other cases, I think a lot of people, even with R. Kelly brought that certain thing, Bill Cosby, we see that, but Diddy is like huge. You know what I'm saying? His network, his touch on the industry, on the culture has been major. So do you think that we need to have some more structured conversations about this? Like this could really be a game-changing case, even though it's been settled, but it can be a game-changing moment for hip hop to get out of the misogynistic tone that's often seen in music, to get into a more respectful space. Do you think that can happen or should happen?
I think you're right, and I would agree with you fully that we need to see more spaces taking up some of the discussions on a deeper level, where we're not, again, just on a gossip level. Oh my gosh, did you hear this? And it's so shocking, and all of those, things that go with this type of legal matter, but I do think it has already started the ball rolling on a hip hop Me Too, if you will, because the folks that have been mentioned here, again, everyone is innocent until proven otherwise, are a part of a greater conversation as to why this type of law was deemed necessary in the first place. In the 50s, for some of these lawsuits were from 50 years ago or more, in the 70s, even in the 90s, there was less of a legal appetite to see and understand and process this type of crime in the way we understand it now. So oftentimes we saw the brush aside. I'm looking back at some of these interviews that were given by an Aaron Hall and by other people, and we're like,
Let me tell you something.
wow,
He is wild.
he didn't age well at all. This was so problematic.
Hell no.
People was laughing
Hell
at,
no.
oh my gosh, he'll go crazy, and you know about me, right? Like, it's like, what?
Right. And Suzette, when I saw that,
Hindsight is
right,
2020. Like, it
my
didn't age
mouth
well.
dropped. My mouth dropped. I was like, dude, are you serious? Like, y'all know how big I am. Y'all know how I do. And it's like, bro, and I'm sorry, like I lost complete respect for this dude, right? Like what? Are you serious? We're talking about sexual assault. We're talking about a woman here. We're talking about, an epidemic that's so strong in our community, and you walking around talking about your sexual prowess, your performance, the size of your manhood.
It shows you how much we've evolved as a society, because what was deemed, I don't even call it acceptable, but what was not, given its kind of due criticism 20 years ago, now just seems very abhorrent. It is now this shift in society that we've seen, where certain types of conversations on interviews, bragging and boasting about certain things that went on way before, these laws took effect, or where, they only had potential victims only had a shorter period of time to make these claims. That's why, certain legislators in New York said, let's kind of open the floodgate and give them a one-time shot at what they claim took place. If they can prove up their case in civil court, so be it. But yes, I do think this is a watershed moment, because it's like you said, it's Diddy. It's someone who has, those type of major brand deals. And I'd be interested to see if there are any others who will disassociate themselves. And even his kids. I was thinking about the poor kids in this and all that.
Come on, Suzanne. Right. You're right.
And again, not to say there are people who are pro Diddy and saying, they're coming after him for whatever reasons. But I do think it has really opened a Pandora's box of what it has meant to be a part of the hip hop community, especially in that era, and what took place. We always heard about Aura and what Mr. Kelly has been accused of, but there are many others that we kind of were more hush hush about, that we, kind of knew within the family, so to speak, within the community, but we never really addressed it. And they were still popular. Their music was still popping. So many chose to, give the pass or look the other way. Again, there's nothing that has been proven against Mr. Combs, right? These were only allegations, and he has vehemently denied them, and he continues to deny.
But there's some elements
that he's saying is a money grab. Mm-hmm.
But I'm sorry, Suzette. I was just saying that there are some elements of her lawsuit that can be verified, like Kid Cudi's car blowing up, or just some of the things that she pointed out can be verified. And I know that the New York Police Department put out a statement, because there was this kind of like rumor that went around on social media saying they will open up a secret investigation into him. And the NYPD said, no, we have not opened up an investigation. So I'm wondering, is that something that we can expect coming down from Letitia James' office, the Attorney General from the state of Maryland? Or do more women need to step up, which I don't know if it's going to happen, but do more women need to step up? Because I think that it should happen. Like, at the end of the day, you have a lot of power, you have a lot of influence, you've been around, but there have been rumors for years, just like with R. Kelly, just like with other black men, unfortunately, but there have been rumors for years that you've been doing some stuff either with women or with men. And now your sexuality is one thing, but when I'm saying men in terms of forcing him, in terms of his relationship with Usher, relationship with Justin Bieber, You know what I'm saying? What were they doing? What was he doing when they were 14 years old and 15 years old? That's the concerning part. It's not about if you're gay, you gay. But once you start to get into the space of children, abusing children or victimizing children, you put your hands on women, then that's a different conversation.
Okay, let's also be very clear that he has denied any of this.
Right.
And again, those are just allegations. There's nothing proven yet, whether on the criminal justice side, on the criminal side of our legal system, or on the civil side. So let's just kind of pause there just to make sure both sides are represented in the discussion. I will just only speak to the legal side of it.
Absolutely.
It depends on the statute of limitations in a given state. Now, if California is in fact opening up back the door, again, I cannot confirm it as far as this conversation goes, but looking ahead, if we start to see other states allowing for a review to say, hey, you know, what we understand now to be sexual abuse, sexual assault, and the time frame that we gave people in the past due to our laws, we might need to revisit these. And I think even looking procedurally, Cassie's lawsuit was filed in federal court. I've never seen something like this filed in a federal lawsuit. What was allowed under this statute was to be in state court, in New York's own court system. I thought that was very interesting. And I don't know, I can make a prognostication as to what might have happened there, but it wasn't under a federal statute. That's what I was like, wait a minute, shouldn't this have been in state court? So procedurally, if the state of New York itself has laws that have been broken and that they are within the statute of limitations, then we might see some sort of movement. I thought it was really interesting what you just brought up, that as powerful as Diddy is, they had to come out and make a statement and say that we are not investigating, which means, in my mind as an attorney, they probably are investigating. There's no proof. Of course, they have said they are not. But at first, I was like, that's not the statement you want to hear as a potential defendant. But we have to take them at their word. That's what they said, coming from the police department there. But again, who knows what's cooking? And again, it depends on the dates, the victims, when things possibly have occurred, as to whether we'll see any criminal side, right? The state attorney on behalf of the citizens of the state prosecuting anybody who has broken the laws of the state on the criminal justice side. Now, again, on the civil side, I don't know if we'll see any more types of legislation around the country like this on a state by state basis, or back in New York yet again. But it's been interesting to see, 3,700 is a lot of people, right? Like I said,
a lot of people.
A lot of criminal people who were inside of the prison system, who were incarcerated and experienced, according to some of these lawsuits, some terribly egregious sexual assault and sexual violence at the hand of the state. People who were officers and people who were correctional officers who were charged with their safety were doing some allegedly doing some horrid things. So if those things come out now, maybe we can see change in terms of how the criminal justice system administers its prisons. Again, we talked about this on Roland's show. I had my colleague, I think he's out of Texas, was like, I don't want to hear it, because there are people all the time that are abused within the custody of the state, within prisons, because prisons don't have any national law, right? It's state by state. It depends on funding, and everybody across the country in their own little jurisdictions are doing their own thing. So
absolutely,
again, President Biden is trying to, they have formed a hotline. They are trying to, I don't want to say create a standard, because they can't. It would have to be through the Congress, but trying to provide resources to help prison wardens and others to do the right thing and to make sure they're meeting an adequate standard for protecting those in their care. But yeah, I think there are many parts of this conversation that are going to lead to hopeful change. But whether we'll see more lawsuits like this in other states is yet to be seen. We'll see.
All right, let's take a quick pause. And let's come right back, get some final remarks from Suzette here and from you folks. Stay with us. It's The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Got my sister Suzette speak. Suzette, just to kind of wrap this part of the conversation up, where do we go from here? Because Cassie, in her particular case, is pretty much closed out, right? So she can't write any books, or what are the conditions?
But we don't know the terms of the settlement. We don't know the terms of the
So
settlement.
that's what
I'm actually curious as to what is included and not included in that.
So that's one case. Is this and I'm kind of making sure that we understand the magnitude of this. Can this be a watershed moment for hip hop? Can we at least get some different conversations? I know, people are talking about hip hop right now in terms of just the overall messaging of violence and all of that stuff. And now you got this added to it. It feels like hip hop, even as we close out the 50-year anniversary of hip hop, two big discussions have been happening in the hip hop world. One is about violence that was kicked off by the artist D1, and talking about violence and how hip hop artists need to do more to clean up their music. And then two, you have this. So this is all happening in the year that we celebrate a major milestone for the culture and for the music. And I'm wondering, as we go to the year 51, should we expect some different things coming from our artists? And I think we should. I think we need to have some very, very different conversations. I'm tired of hearing about artists talking about giving away some damn turkeys, but you putting out music that is going to be around far longer than a damn turkey.
And have a greater impact on people, on our community, on children's minds. Yeah, I do think I would call this a moment of reckoning. I think watershed would lead to changes. I do think with the list of people who unfortunately are now facing these type of allegations, there are many more of our entertainers, and I wouldn't say black men, I would say black men in entertainment now, that have been called into question. Now, again, everyone is innocent until proven otherwise. But I do think with the level of notoriety, a lot of folks, even Mayor Eric Adams, I was looking at.
I saw that.
Something happened in the 90s, and again, to defend something that is that old, it's going to be very interesting. I want to see how certain of these cases play out. And I think that will lead to the change or lack thereof that you speak of. If we see some degree of accountability, with whatever facts are proved up right through each case. I do think this is going to be a continuing conversation. I don't think it has stopped yet because, again, we see so many big names that are attached to this type of allegation. Again, I do think it is some kind of reckoning that didn't happen during Me Too, but is most definitely happening now with all the names that are attached to said lawsuits. But we'll see if other states follow suit. I think that's going to be very interesting. And again, we got to see how these lawsuits play out and what outcomes are deemed, by either, the judge or jury.
Absolutely.
So what, accountability is meted out. We don't know. There's just so many questions still, but I do think this has definitely opened a door to a deeper conversation when it comes to the behavior of entertainers, when it comes to people who they have a lot of influence over. I do think it has changed the conversation quite a bit.
Hey, look, Seabreeze 40 checking in as part of the culture crew. Suzette, Seabreeze 40 said, "We now know there's another way to gain success, and it doesn't require hurting Black women." There it is right there, Seabreeze 40. I agree with you. It does not require hurting, diminishing Black women. And it does not, just to add to what you said, Seabreeze 40, it doesn't even require you talking about killing your black men and your brother. This does not have to be our pathway to success. This does not have to be our quote unquote musical expression. It doesn't have to be this way. And this is whether it's for the artists or for the companies behind it or for those of us who consume it. It does not have to be this way. We can have a different musical, cultural experience. We need a cultural revolution at this point. There's a culture.
That's how hip hop started. That's how hip hop started.
That's
So
how hip hop started.
that's who we are. We're spiritual beings. We're spiritual people. If we can get back to
and miss me with all that. Hey, look, Suzette, trust me. Miss me with the talk about music is. I heard Jim Jones say it. He said, "Oh man, music is just my music, but I do, that's just what I do." No, 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 no. You influence thoughts. You influence behaviors. Your music brings a certain energy. So you are held responsible for the energy, the message that you put out there. You can't say, well, I do stuff in the community, but still pump it. Man, nobody gives a damn if you fed them or you put some clothes on their back, and that lasts a little bit of time. Your music can be downloaded. It is studied. It is we feed off the music more than we feed off a damn turkey.
Yeah.
Sorry, but not sorry.
No, it's
sorry,
true.
but not sorry. You know what I'm saying? Like let's stop acting as if, I just put some stuff, because guess what? If hip hop was a predominantly white culture, it would be a different conversation.
Farajii, we can't even start that. Don't start that, my brother. Don't start. They're not ready.
That's what it is. All right. Look, we got our time in together. Suzette, make sure y'all check her out on all her social media platforms. She's always posting, always involved, staying in tune. Suzette, anything that we need to know about the work that you're doing?
Well, yeah, shout out to the FAMU alumni chapter in Fort Lauderdale and Broward County. They're going to be holding a voter information forum. There has been huge changes in Florida as to what you need to do to register and stay registered. There's going to be a big wipe December 31st of registered voters from our voting rolls, right? So we have to know what we need to do. You have to show intent, basically. This is Senate Bill 90, that you want to vote. Change your address, update your signature, or the easiest way is to order a vote by mail. That shows intent to want to vote. So we're going to talk about that in a forum coming up December 12th. It'll be on my pages, on my Instagram, wherever, Facebook. Please link me, and also please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, Suzette Speaks. I appreciate you having me, Farajii.
Absolutely. Thank you, as always, checking in with Suzette Speaks. Y'all can see her here on The Culture every Wednesday, providing both her cultural, political, and legal analysis here like no other. And I'm always happy to have my sister joining me. So Suzette Speaks, thank you for being so good for the culture.
Thank you. See you next week, everybody.
See you next week. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank each and every one of you. Thank you for all of the new watchers that joined us in the Culture Crew chat today. Truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you again, Karen, for your support of the work that we're doing here at Black Star Network and on The Culture, because it means a world of difference. Make sure y'all go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com, download the app, follow us on social media, but be like Karen Meggs, and please put something in a bucket. Giving Tuesday was yesterday, but it doesn't stop the work that we're doing today. So your support is necessary and it's needed. Again, go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. That's going to do it for me. I would thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Thank you for my fantastic, phenomenal production team for making the show happen today. And certainly, I thank Black Star Network for the space and the place to have these conversations. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.